The door slammed so hard that the picture frames on the hallway wall shook. Tyler didn't care. He was done. Done with the lectures, done with being treated like a little kid, and done with his father acting like he knew everything about life. You can't just leave like this. His dad's voice called from inside the house, but Tyler was already halfway down the driveway, his hands shoved deep into his jacket pockets, his jaw clenched tight. It was a Saturday evening in late October, the kind of evening where the air starts to bite just a little, where the sun sets earlier than you want it to, painting the sky in those deep orange and purple colors that normally Tyler might have stopped to appreciate. But not tonight. Tonight all he could see was red. The fight had started over something stupid. Really stupid, actually. Tyler was supposed to volunteer at the local community center that evening, helping with the weekend program for younger kids. He'd been doing it for 6 months now, every Saturday without fail. But this one time, just this once, he wanted to skip it. His friends were meeting up at their usual hangout spot, and Tyler wanted to be there. He wanted to feel normal, wanted to laugh and joke around without any responsibility hanging over his head. Was that really too much to ask? His father didn't think so. "You made a commitment," he'd said, standing in the kitchen with his arms crossed. "Those kids count on you. You can't just bail because something more fun came along." Tyler had tried to explain. He'd tried to tell his dad that he never got to just be a teenager, that he was always doing the right thing, always being responsible, always thinking about everyone else. "One time, Dad, I'm asking for one time off," but his father wouldn't budge. And then came the lecture, the one Tyler had heard 100 times before, about how kids these days don't understand commitment, about how everything is just handed to them, about how back in his day when you said you'd do something, you did it, no questions asked. That's when Tyler's mother had stepped in, her voice soft and careful, trying to calm the situation down. "Maybe we can talk about this," she'd suggested. Maybe Tyler can find someone to cover for him just this once. But Tyler's dad had shut that down immediately. No, he needs to learn that the world doesn't revolve around him. And that's when something inside Tyler just snapped. He'd said things he probably shouldn't have said. Told his father he was being unfair, that he was too strict, that he never understood anything. His dad had fired back, his voice getting louder, saying Tyler was being selfish and immature. The whole thing spiraled from there. Before Tyler knew it, they weren't even arguing about the volunteer work anymore. They were arguing about everything. About Tyler's grades, about his attitude, about how he spent his time, about how he talked to his parents. "I'm 17 years old," Tyler had shouted. "When are you going to start treating me like I can make my own decisions?" "When you start making good ones," his father had shot back. That was it. Tyler grabbed his jacket and headed for the door. His mother called after him, asking him to please just stay and talk this through. But Tyler couldn't. He felt like if he stayed in that house one more second, he'd explode. Now, walking down the familiar streets of his neighborhood, Tyler could feel his heart still pounding in his chest. His hands were shaking, not from the cold but from the anger and frustration that coursed through him. He pulled out his phone and texted his friends, "On my way. Be there in 20?" The responses came back quickly. Excited messages, jokes, plans for the evening. At least someone was happy to see him, Tyler thought bitterly. He knew these streets like the back of his hand. He'd grown up here, played in these yards as a kid, learned to ride his bike on these sidewalks. Every house held some memory. There was the Johnson's place where he used to play basketball in the driveway. There was old Mr. Peterson's house with the garden that always looked perfect. There was the corner store where he'd bought candy after school for years. As Tyler walked, he tried to shake off the anger, but it clung to him like a heavy coat. Part of him knew his dad had a point. He had made a commitment. Those kids at the community center did look forward to seeing him every week. But another part of him, the louder part right now, just felt suffocated by all the expectations. Why did he always have to be the good kid? Why did he always have to do the right thing? Why couldn't he just be selfish for once? He passed by Mrs. Wilson's house and saw her struggling with grocery bags, trying to balance them while fishing for her keys. Tyler had known Mrs. Wilson his whole life. She'd given him cookies when he was little, always asked about school, always had a kind word. Any other day he would have jogged over and helped her carry those bags inside. But tonight, wrapped up in his own anger and resentment, Tyler pretended he didn't see her. He kept his head down and kept walking. He heard one of her bags tear and groceries tumble onto her driveway, heard her frustrated sigh, but he didn't turn around. That should have been his first clue that this wasn't who he really was, that the anger was making him into someone he didn't recognize. But Tyler was too worked up to notice. He cut through the park, taking the shortcut he'd used a million times. The playground was empty now, the swings moving slightly in the breeze. Tyler remembered playing there as a kid, back when life was simple, back when the biggest problem was whether he'd get picked first for kickball. When had everything gotten so complicated? When had he started feeling like he was constantly disappointing everyone? His phone buzzed. A text from his mom. "Please come home. Let's talk about this." Tyler ignored it. He wasn't ready to go back, wasn't ready to apologize or listen to more lectures about responsibility and growing up. He just wanted to forget about it all for a while. The sun was getting lower now and the streetlights were starting to flicker on. Tyler pulled his jacket tighter around him. He could see his breath in the air, little clouds of fog that disappeared as quickly as they formed. He thought about his dad, probably sitting at the kitchen table right now, probably still angry. Tyler wondered if his father ever regretted being so hard on him. Did he ever think maybe he was asking too much? Did he ever remember what it was like to be 17 and just want some freedom? But then Tyler thought about all the things his dad had done for him over the years. The early morning drives to football practice, the late nights helping with homework, the way he always showed up to every game, every school event, even when he was exhausted from work. His dad wasn't a bad person. Tyler knew that. He was just strict. Old-fashioned, maybe. He believed in discipline and responsibility and all those things that felt like chains to Tyler right now. The thing was, Tyler knew he'd probably end up going to the community center eventually. He knew he'd feel guilty about skipping it. That's just how he was wired. His parents had raised him to care about other people, to keep his word, to show up when people counted on him. But right now, in this moment, he wanted to rebel. He wanted to do what he wanted to do. Consequences be damned. Tyler turned onto Maple Street, still 15 minutes from where his friends were meeting. The neighborhood was quiet here, more spread out. Fewer streetlights. He liked this route because it was peaceful, gave him time to think. That's when he heard it. At first he thought it might be a cat, a small distressed sound that didn't quite fit the peaceful evening. Tyler slowed his pace, listening. There it was again. Not a cat. Something else. It sounded like crying. Tyler stopped walking completely. His anger started to fade, replaced by something else. Curiosity, maybe. Or concern. The sound was coming from somewhere off to his right, behind a row of overgrown bushes near an old construction site that had been abandoned for months. He should keep walking. His friends were waiting. This wasn't his problem, but the crying continued and something in Tyler's chest tightened. He stood there for a long moment, torn between the person he was trying to be tonight and the person he actually was. Then, almost against his will, his feet started moving toward the sound. Because despite everything, despite the anger and the rebellion and the desire to just think about himself for once, Tyler couldn't walk away from someone who needed help. He had no idea that this decision, made in a split second on a quiet October evening, would change everything. That the sound behind those bushes would lead him into a situation that would test him in ways he'd never imagined. That he'd left home as an angry teenager and would return as something entirely different. All he knew was that someone was crying, and he couldn't just walk away. Tyler pushed through the overgrown bushes, branches scraping against his jacket. The crying was clearer now, definitely a child, and his heart started beating faster for a completely different reason than his earlier anger. "Hello?" he called out softly, not wanting to scare whoever was there. "Is someone there?" The crying stopped for a second, then started up again, even more distressed. Tyler's eyes adjusted to the dimmer light behind the bushes, and that's when he saw her. A little girl, couldn't have been more than 4 or 5 years old, was sitting in the dirt near the chain-link fence of the abandoned construction site. Her clothes were dirty, her blonde hair was messy and tangled, and her face was streaked with tears. She looked absolutely terrified. Tyler's stomach dropped. This wasn't right. A child this young shouldn't be out here alone, especially not as the sun was setting. He crouched down slowly, keeping some distance so he wouldn't frighten her more. "Hey, it's okay," he said gently. "My name is Tyler. I'm not going to hurt you. Can you tell me your name?" The little girl stared at him with wide, frightened eyes. She hiccuped, trying to catch her breath between sobs. Finally, in a tiny voice, she whispered, "Lily." "Hi, Lily," Tyler said, trying to keep his voice calm even though his mind was racing. "That's a really pretty name. Can you tell me where your mom and dad are?" At the mention of her parents, Lily started crying harder. She shook her head frantically, her little hands gripping the dirt. Tyler looked around. The street was empty. No cars, no people walking their dogs, no frantic parents calling out a child's name. Just silence, broken only by Lily's crying and the distant sound of traffic from the main road. "It's okay, sweetie," Tyler said. "We're going to find your parents, all right? Don't worry." He pulled out his phone, ready to call the police, but then something caught his eye. Lily's pink jacket was torn at the shoulder. Not like it had snagged on something, but like someone had grabbed her roughly. And there, about 10 feet away, was one of her shoes, lying in the gravel like it had fallen off while she was running, or struggling. Tyler's blood went cold. This wasn't a case of a lost child who'd wandered away from home. Something was very wrong here. He looked more carefully at the scene around him. Fresh tire marks in the gravel led away from the construction site. They were recent, still clear and distinct. And there, near where Lily sat, were footprints. Adult footprints. "Large ones, Lily," Tyler said, trying to keep the fear out of his voice. "Did someone bring you here?" The little girl nodded, tears still streaming down her face. "Was it your mom or dad?" She shook her head. Tyler felt sick. He quickly opened his phone and dialed 911. But as he was about to press call, he heard something that made him freeze. An engine. A car engine, and it was getting closer. Tyler peeked through the bushes and saw a dark van slowly cruising down the street, moving at a crawl. It wasn't a delivery van or a work vehicle. The windows were tinted dark, and something about the way it was moving, like a predator searching for prey, made every alarm in Tyler's head go off. The van slowed down even more as it approached the construction site. Tyler made a split-second decision. He quickly typed out a text to 911 with their location, adding, "Child in danger, possible abduction." Then, moving as quietly as he could, he sent the same message to his parents. He didn't know if they'd see it right away, but he had to try. "Lily," he whispered urgently, "we need to be very quiet, okay? Like we're playing hide and seek. Can you do that for me?" The little girl, sensing the fear in his voice, nodded and pressed her hands over her mouth. Tyler gently picked her up, and she immediately wrapped her arms around his neck, burying her face in his shoulder. She was so small, so light, and Tyler felt a fierce protective instinct surge through him. Nobody was going to hurt this kid. Not while he was here. Through the bushes, he watched the van come to a complete stop right in front of the construction site. Tyler's heart was hammering so hard he was sure they'd hear it. He held Lily close and stayed absolutely still. The van's door opened. Tyler could hear voices now, two men talking in low tones. "I'm telling you, she was right here," one voice said. "She couldn't have gone far. She's just a little kid. We need to find her fast," the other voice replied. "This is taking too long." Tyler felt Lily trembling in his arms. She recognized those voices. He could tell by the way she tensed up, by the way she gripped him tighter. The men were getting out of the van. Tyler could hear their footsteps on the gravel. They were coming toward the construction site, toward the bushes, toward them. Tyler looked around desperately. Behind them was a wooden fence separating the construction site from the backyards of the houses on the next street over. It was tall, maybe 6 feet, but there was a section where a board was missing. He had to move. Now. Still holding Lily, Tyler slowly backed away from the bushes, trying not to make a sound. Every step felt like it took forever. Every snapped twig sounded like a gunshot to his ears. "Check over there," one of the men said, and Tyler heard footsteps coming closer to the bushes. Tyler reached the fence and carefully squeezed through the gap in the boards, protecting Lily's head as they went through. On the other side was someone's backyard, dark and quiet. A dog started barking from inside the house, and Tyler silently thanked that dog for covering any noise they might have made. He could hear the men on the other side of the fence now. Pushing through the bushes, "She's not here," one said, frustration clear in his voice. "She has to be somewhere. A 4-year-old can't just disappear. Maybe she found her way to a house. Maybe someone already called the cops. Then we need to leave. Now. Before this whole thing blows up in our faces." Tyler held his breath. Lily was completely silent against his shoulder, like she understood that their lives depended on it. He heard the men walking back to their van, still talking in low voices. The engine started up again, but instead of driving away, The van started moving slowly down the street like they were looking for any sign of the little girl. Tyler knew he couldn't stay here. The van was circling the block and it was only a matter of time before they spotted them. He needed to get Lily somewhere safe. Somewhere with lots of people, somewhere the men in that van wouldn't dare to follow. He thought quickly. He knew this neighborhood inside and out. He was about 5 blocks from the community center, the very place he'd been so angry about going to earlier. Right now, there'd be at least 30 people there for the evening program. Staff, volunteers, parents, lights, safety, witnesses. It was perfect, Lily, Tyler whispered. We're going to go for a little run, okay? I need you to hold on tight and stay very quiet. Can you be brave for me? The little girl nodded against his shoulder. Tyler could feel her small heart beating like a hummingbird's wings. He took a deep breath and then he ran. Tyler cut through backyards, jumped over a low fence, and emerged onto the next street over. He could hear the van's engine somewhere behind them, searching. Tyler knew every shortcut in this neighborhood, every alley, every path. He'd been exploring these streets since he was Lily's age. He ran through the Hendersons' yard knowing they were away this weekend. He ducked behind their garage, waited a moment to catch his breath and listen. The van's engine sounded farther away now. Lily lifted her head slightly. I'm scared, she whispered. I know, sweetie, Tyler said, adjusting his grip on her. But you're doing so great. We're almost somewhere safe, okay? He started running again, this time down an alley that cut between 2 streets. His football training was paying off. Even carrying Lily, he could maintain a good pace. His lungs were burning, but he didn't slow down. Behind them, he heard the van's engine again, closer this time. They'd figured out the direction he was going. Tyler's mind raced. The community center was still 3 blocks away. 3 blocks that suddenly felt like 3 miles. He emerged from the alley and nearly ran into old Mr. Chen, who was taking out his trash. Tyler, Mr. Chen said, startled. What's going on? Call 911, Tyler shouted over his shoulder as he ran past. Tell them there's a kid in danger on Maple Street. Tell them to send police to the community center. He didn't wait to see if Mr. Chen understood. He just kept running. The van appeared at the end of the street and Tyler's heart nearly stopped. They'd seen him. The engine revved and the van started accelerating toward them. Tyler turned sharply, cutting through another yard. The van couldn't follow him here. There was a narrow path between houses, barely wide enough for a person to walk through. Tyler squeezed through, protecting Lily's head, the fence scraping his shoulders. He could hear the van trying to navigate the streets to cut him off, but Tyler had the advantage. He knew these paths. They didn't 2 more blocks. The community center's lights were visible now, warm and welcoming in the growing darkness. Tyler's legs were screaming at him to slow down, but he pushed harder. Lily was crying quietly against his shoulder, and Tyler kept whispering to her that they were almost safe, almost there. 1 more block. The van appeared again, this time ahead of them, trying to block the street. But Tyler was already turning, taking the long way around through the church parking lot. And then, finally, blessedly, he was at the community center. The building was lit up, and through the windows, Tyler could see people inside. Safety, witnesses, protection. He burst through the front doors, startling everyone inside. Tyler practically fell through the doors of the community center, gasping for breath, still clutching Lily tightly in his arms. The warm air hit his face, and for a second he just stood there, overwhelmed by the sudden shift from the terror outside to the safety inside. The main room went silent. A dozen faces turned to stare at him. Kids who'd been playing basketball stopped mid-game. Volunteers who'd been setting up tables for an art project froze. Parents looked up from their phones. Lock the doors, Tyler shouted, his voice hoarse. Lock all the doors right now. Mr. Rodriguez, the community center director, was the first to react. He was an older guy, maybe in his 50s, with gray hair and a calm demeanor that Tyler had always respected. But right now, there was something in his eyes that Tyler recognized. It was the look of someone who'd seen real danger before and knew how to handle it. What's happening, Tyler? Mr. Rodriguez asked, already moving toward the front entrance. There's a van. Tyler managed to get out between breaths. 2 men. They're after her. He looked down at Lily, who was still clinging to him like he was the only solid thing in a world gone crazy. They took her. I found her behind the old construction site on Maple Street. Mr. Rodriguez's expression hardened. He turned to the other volunteers. Beth, lock the back entrance. Kevin, get the side doors. Everyone else, move the kids to the back rooms, now. The community center erupted into organized chaos. Tyler had always known Mr. Rodriguez was former military, but he'd never seen him in action like this. The man moved with purpose, giving clear commands, getting everyone to safety. Did you call the police? Mr. Rodriguez asked Tyler. I texted 911 and I told Mr. Chen to call them when I ran past his house. Good man. Mr. Rodriguez gently took Lily from Tyler's arms. The little girl protested at first, reaching back for Tyler, but Mr. Rodriguez spoke to her in a soft, calming voice. Hey there, sweetheart. You're safe now. Nobody's going to hurt you here. You did such a good job being brave. Tyler's legs suddenly felt like jelly. The adrenaline that had kept him running was wearing off, and he had to lean against the wall to stay standing. His whole body was shaking. Tyler, come with me, said Mrs. Patterson, one of the longtime volunteers. She was a kind woman in her 60s who always brought homemade cookies to the center. Let's get you some water. But Tyler couldn't move from the window. Through the glass, he could see the dark van pulling up across the street. It just sat there, engine running like a predator watching its prey from a distance. They're here, Tyler said, his voice barely above a whisper. Mr. Rodriguez appeared beside him, and Tyler noticed for the first time that two other men had positioned themselves near the doors. He recognized them as parents who often hung around during the evening programs. They looked ready for trouble. How many men? Mr. Rodriguez asked quietly, his eyes fixed on the van. 2. At least that's all I saw. And you're sure they took this child? She told me someone brought her to that construction site and it wasn't her parents. Her jacket's torn like someone grabbed her, and when I heard them coming back looking for her, she recognized their voices. She was terrified. Mr. Rodriguez nodded slowly. You did the right thing, son. Getting her here was smart thinking. In the back room, Tyler could hear Beth, another volunteer, talking on the phone with the police, giving them details about the situation. He could hear kids asking what was happening, and the adults trying to keep them calm without scaring them. The van sat there for what felt like forever, but was probably only a minute or two. Tyler couldn't see inside through the tinted windows, but he could imagine the men in there, trying to decide what to do. They'd followed him here. They knew Lily was inside, but they also knew this wasn't an abandoned construction site anymore. This was a building full of witnesses. Come on, Tyler muttered under his breath. Leave, just leave. As if they'd heard him, the van's engine revved. But instead of driving away, it started slowly circling the block. Tyler watched it disappear around the corner, his stomach tight with anxiety. They're not giving up, he said. Maybe not, Mr. Rodriguez replied. But they're not getting in here either. Police are 3 minutes out. Beth just confirmed it. 3 minutes. Tyler looked at his watch. 3 minutes felt like a lifetime right now. The van appeared again, this time coming from the other direction. It slowed down in front of the community center again. Tyler could feel his heart pounding. What if they tried to break in? What if they had weapons? Then cutting through the tension like a knife, Tyler heard sirens. Distant at first, but getting closer. The beautiful, wonderful sound of police sirens. The van heard them too. Tyler saw it hesitate for just a second. Then the engine roared and it took off down the street, tires squealing as it turned the corner and disappeared. They're running, Tyler said, relief flooding through him. Good, Mr. Rodriguez said. Let them run. The police will find them. 2 police cars pulled up in front of the community center within seconds of each other, lights flashing, sirens winding down. Tyler saw 4 officers jump out, hands on their weapons, eyes scanning the area for threats. Mr. Rodriguez opened the front door and stepped out, hands visible, calling out to identify himself. Tyler watched through the window as the director spoke with the officers, gesturing back toward the building, explaining the situation. One of the officers, a woman with her hair pulled back in a tight ponytail, came inside immediately. Her nameplate read Officer Martinez. She had kind eyes, but there was steel in them too. I'm Officer Martinez, she said. Which one of you is Tyler? Tyler raised his hand, feeling suddenly shy. That's me. Son, I need you to tell me everything that happened. Start from the beginning, so Tyler did. He told her about walking through the neighborhood, hearing crying, finding Lily behind the bushes at the construction site. He told her about the torn jacket, the shoe, the tire tracks. He told her about hiding when the van came back, about running through the neighborhood with Lily in his arms, about the chase that led them here. Officer Martinez listened carefully, taking notes, asking clarifying questions. Another officer brought Lily over, and Tyler could see that despite everything, the little girl had calmed down considerably. She was holding a stuffed teddy bear that Beth must have found somewhere in the center, and she was sipping on a juice box. "Did the men ever see your face?" Officer Martinez asked Tyler. Tyler thought about it. "I don't think so. When they came back to the construction site, I was hiding in the bushes with Lily. They never got close enough to see us clearly." "That's good. That's very good." She closed her notebook. "Tyler, what you did tonight was incredibly brave. And smart. You got this little girl to safety. You contacted emergency services and you didn't try to confront dangerous men on your own. You did everything right." Tyler felt a strange mix of pride and embarrassment. "I just did what anyone would do." "No," Officer Martinez said firmly. "Most people would have walked right past. Most people wouldn't have investigated crying behind bushes. Most teenagers would have panicked when they realized what was happening. You kept your head and you saved this child's life." More police arrived. The community center became a hub of activity. Officers were taking statements from everyone. Tyler overheard them putting out a description of the van, coordinating with other units to search the area. They set up roadblocks at major intersections. Helicopters could be heard in the distance. One officer, an older man with gray hair, was working specifically with Lily. He was trained in talking to traumatized children, and Tyler watched as he gently asked her questions, using simple words, never pushing too hard. Lily told them her last name, her address, how she'd been playing at a park with her older sister when a man told her that her mom wanted to see her by the parking lot. Tyler felt sick listening to it. This little girl had been targeted, lured away from safety and taken by strangers. And if he hadn't heard her crying, if he just kept walking like he'd almost done, he couldn't finish that thought. "Tyler?" It was Mrs. Patterson again. "Your parents are here." Tyler turned and saw his mom and dad rushing through the door, their faces pale with worry. His mom reached him first, pulling him into a tight hug that nearly knocked the breath out of him. "Oh my God, Tyler," she said, her voice shaking. "When we got your text, we thought—" His dad was there too, his hand on Tyler's shoulder, his eyes red like he'd been crying. Tyler had never seen his father cry before. "Are you hurt?" his dad asked, his voice rough.
"Did they hurt you?"
"I'm fine, Dad, I'm okay." "You could have been killed," his father said, and his hand was trembling on Tyler's shoulder. "Those men, if they'd caught you. But they didn't. I was faster." His dad pulled him into a hug then, and Tyler could feel him shaking. "You stupid, brave, incredible kid," his dad muttered. "What were you thinking, running from kidnappers?" "I was thinking I couldn't let them take her again," Tyler said simply. Officer Martinez approached them. "Mr. and Mrs. Anderson? I'm Officer Martinez. Your son showed remarkable courage tonight. We've got units searching for the suspects now, and thanks to Tyler's quick thinking and detailed description, we've got good leads." "What about Lily's parents?" Tyler's mom asked. "Do they know she's safe?" "We're bringing them here now," Officer Martinez said. "They reported her missing 3 hours ago from a park in the next town over. They've been out of their minds with worry." 3 hours. Tyler looked over at Lily, who was now coloring with crayons that Beth had given her, trying to feel normal again after the worst experience of her young life. 3 hours her parents had been searching, not knowing if they'd ever see their daughter again. "Tyler," Mr. Rodriguez called from across the room. "Come here for a second." Tyler walked over, his parents following. Mr. Rodriguez put a hand on his shoulder. "I owe you an apology," the director said. "For what?" Tyler asked, confused. "I heard from your mother that you didn't want to come here tonight, that you two had a fight about it." Mr. Rodriguez smiled sadly. "If you'd gotten your way, if you'd gone to hang out with your friends instead, Lily might not be here right now." Tyler felt the weight of those words settle over him. It was true. If his dad hadn't insisted he stick to his commitment, if Tyler had won that argument and gone to meet his friends, he wouldn't have been on Maple Street at that exact moment. He wouldn't have heard Lily crying. He wouldn't have found her before those men came back. Sometimes the things we fight against the hardest turn out to be exactly where we need to be. The community center doors opened again, and a couple rushed in, their faces etched with desperate hope. Lily looked up from her coloring and her eyes went wide. "Mommy!" she screamed, and she ran across the room into her mother's arms. The sound of Lily's mother crying filled the community center. They were tears of relief, of joy, of the kind of gratitude that comes from getting back something you thought was lost forever. Lily's father stood next to them, his arms wrapped around both his daughter and his wife, his face buried in their hair, his shoulders shaking. Tyler stood off to the side with his parents, watching the reunion, feeling something catch in his throat. This was real. This little girl was going home to her family. She was safe. She was alive. And that was because of a series of small choices that had led him to the right place at exactly the right time. That could have ended so differently, his mother whispered, squeezing his hand. Tyler knew what she meant. If those men had found Lily before he did, if he'd been caught during the chase, if he'd made one wrong turn, there were 100 ways this night could have gone terribly wrong. Officer Martinez was talking with Lily's parents now, getting their information, explaining what would happen next. Another officer was on the phone and Tyler caught pieces of the conversation. Something about security cameras, something about a license plate number. After a few minutes, Lily's mother stood up and looked around the room. Her eyes were still wet with tears, but there was something fierce and determined in her expression. "Which one of you is Tyler?" she asked. Tyler raised his hand awkwardly. "That's me, ma'am." She walked over to him, and before Tyler knew what was happening, she'd pulled him into a hug so tight he could barely breathe. "You saved my baby," she said, her voice breaking. "You saved my little girl. How do I even begin to thank you for that?" Tyler didn't know what to say. I heard her crying. I couldn't leave her there." "But you could have," Lily's father said, joining them. He was a tall man with kind eyes that were red from crying. "You could have called someone and kept walking. You could have not gotten involved. But you didn't. You put yourself in danger to protect our daughter." "Anyone would have done the same thing," Tyler said, feeling embarrassed by all the attention. "No," Officer Martinez interjected. "They really wouldn't have. I've been doing this job for 15 years, and I can tell you that most people don't want to get involved. They're scared, or they're too busy, or they convince themselves it's not their problem. What you did was exceptional." Tyler's father stepped forward and shook hands with Lily's father. "I'm Robert Anderson, Tyler's dad. I'm so glad your daughter is safe. I'm David Mitchell, and this is my wife, Rebecca. We live about 20 miles from here. Lily and her older sister were at the park near our house. My older daughter, she's 13. She was watching Lily while my wife and I were nearby. One of the men told Lily that her mom needed her, and when she went to look, they grabbed her and put her in a van." Rebecca Mitchell's face crumpled again. It happened so fast. One minute she was on the swings, and the next minute she was gone. We searched everywhere. We called the police immediately. We thought... She couldn't finish the sentence. "Where's your older daughter now?" Tyler's mom asked gently. "With my sister," David said. "She's devastated. She blames herself, but she's just a kid. She couldn't have known." These men were professional. Officer Martinez's radio crackled and she stepped away to answer it. When she came back, there was satisfaction in her eyes. "We found the van," she announced. "Abandoned about 10 miles from here. Forensics is processing it now. And we've got footage from security cameras showing the 2 suspects leaving it and getting into another vehicle. We've got clear images of their faces. Do you know who they are?" David Mitchell asked urgently. "We're running their faces through our databases now. But based on what we found in the van and based on Lily's description of events, this appears to be connected to a larger operation we've been investigating for months. You got very lucky, Mr. and Mrs. Mitchell. Most children who are taken like this," and she glanced at Tyler. "Well, they don't come home." The room fell silent. Everyone understood what she wasn't saying. Lily could have disappeared forever. She could have become another statistic, another missing child poster on a bulletin board, another family's nightmare that never ended. The route Tyler took when he was running, Officer Martinez continued, the turns he made, the shortcuts through yards. "We've got footage from doorbell cameras and security systems all along his path. It's going to be crucial evidence. Tyler, you basically led these suspects on a chase that was recorded from multiple angles. That's going to help us build a strong case." Tyler hadn't thought about that. He'd just been running, trying to keep Lily safe, using the paths he knew. But of course people had cameras now. Ring doorbell, security systems. His whole desperate run through the neighborhood had been documented. "There's something else," Officer Martinez said, looking at Tyler with renewed respect. "Mr. Chen, the neighbor you told to call 911. He didn't just call, When he saw the van chasing you, he got in his car and followed it, keeping the dispatcher updated on its location. His information helped us narrow down the search area significantly. Tyler made a mental note to thank Mr. Chen. The old man had actually helped chase down kidnappers. We're going to need Tyler to come to the station sometime in the next day or two to give a formal statement, Officer Martinez said to Tyler's parents. We'll want him to look at some photos, see if he can identify the suspects. And there will likely be a trial eventually, where he'll need to testify about what he saw and did. Of course, Tyler's dad said. Whatever you need. Lily, who had been quietly sitting with her mother, suddenly got up and walked over to Tyler. She looked up at him with those big eyes and, without warning, she wrapped her small arms around his legs. Thank you for saving me, she said in her small voice. Tyler crouched down to her level. You were really brave, Lily. You held on tight when I was running, and you stayed quiet when we were hiding. You helped save yourself too. She smiled at him, a genuine smile that lit up her tear-stained face. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out something small and plastic. It was a unicorn sticker, a little worse for wear from being in her pocket all day. This is my favorite, she said, pressing it into Tyler's hand. You can have it. Tyler felt something break inside him in a good way. This little girl, who'd been through the worst experience of her young life, was giving him her favorite sticker. He closed his hand around it carefully. I'll keep it forever, he promised. As the evening wore on, more people started arriving at the community center. The local news had gotten wind of the story, and while the police kept them outside, Tyler could see the camera crews setting up. His phone started buzzing with texts from friends who'd seen something on social media. This is going to be a big deal, Mr. Rodriguez said quietly to Tyler. You're going to be in the news, probably. The mayor's office already called. They want to give you some kind of recognition. Tyler felt overwhelmed. I don't want to be famous. I just wanted to help. I know, Mr. Rodriguez said kindly. But what you did matters. It matters to Lily and her family, obviously, but it also matters to this community. It matters that a young person saw someone in trouble and didn't look away. In a world where people are always saying that kids these days don't care about anything, you proved them wrong. Tyler thought about the fight with his father, about how angry he'd been about having to be responsible, about having to think of others instead of himself. It seemed like that argument had happened 1,000,000 years ago instead of just a few hours. His phone buzzed again. This time it was from his friends, the ones he was supposed to meet tonight. Dude, are you okay? We're seeing crazy stuff on Facebook about you and a kidnapped kid. Tyler typed back quickly. I'm fine. Long story. Tell you tomorrow. Officer Martinez came over one more time. Tyler, we've got enough for tonight. You can go home with your parents. Get some rest. This has been a traumatic experience, even though you handled it incredibly well. If you find yourself having trouble sleeping, or if you keep thinking about what happened, that's normal. Your parents should consider having you talk to someone, a counselor or therapist, just to process everything. I'm okay, Tyler said, though he wasn't entirely sure that was true. Now that the adrenaline was completely gone, he felt exhausted, wrung out, and a little shaky. You are okay, Officer Martinez agreed, but you've been through something intense. Take care of yourself. The Mitchell family prepared to leave, with 2 police officers escorting them for security. Before they left, Rebecca Mitchell hugged Tyler one more time. You gave me my daughter back, she said simply. I'll never forget that, never. We'd like to stay in touch, David Mitchell added, shaking Tyler's hand. If that's okay with you and your parents, Lily's going to want to see her hero again. Tyler's dad put his hand on Tyler's shoulder. Of course. We'd be honored. As the Mitchells left, Lily turned around one last time and waved at Tyler. He waved back, watching as they walked out into the night that had almost taken her away forever. Mr. Rodriguez started turning off lights in the community center. The evening program had been canceled after everything that happened, and parents had picked up all the other kids. Now it was just Tyler, his parents, Mr. Rodriguez, and a couple of volunteers cleaning up. Tyler, Mr. Rodriguez said, I want you to know that you're welcome here anytime, not as a volunteer, though of course we love having you volunteer, but as someone who's part of our family. You understand what this place is about now. It's about community. It's about people looking out for each other. Tyler nodded, too tired to say much. His mother wrapped her arm around him. Let's go home, honey. As they walked to the car, Tyler could see news vans on the street, reporters talking into cameras. He saw neighbors standing on their porches, watching, talking among themselves. Word had spread fast through the small community. "Tomorrow's going to be interesting," his father said quietly. Tyler just wanted to sleep. He climbed into the back seat of his parents' car, the same car he'd left from just a few hours ago in anger. Everything felt different now. He felt different. As they drove home through the familiar streets, past Mr. Chen's house and Mrs. Wilson's house and all the other houses he'd run past with Lily in his arms, Tyler looked at the unicorn sticker Lily had given him. In the light from the street lamps, its colors caught the light, rainbow hues against white plastic. Such a small thing, such a simple gift from such a small person, but it represented something huge. It represented a life saved, a family reunited, a moment when everything could have gone wrong but didn't. Tyler tucked the sticker carefully into his wallet, right behind his school ID. Tomorrow there would be questions and interviews and probably more police statements. Tomorrow he'd have to tell the story over and over again. But tonight, right now, all that mattered was that Lily was safe at home with her parents, and Tyler was safe at home with his. Everything else could wait until tomorrow. The house was quiet when they pulled into the driveway. Tyler noticed the porch light was on, casting a warm yellow glow across the front steps. The same steps he'd stormed down in anger just hours ago. It felt like a lifetime had passed since then. His father turned off the engine, but nobody moved for a moment. They just sat there in the darkness of the car, the three of them, processing everything that had happened. "Tyler," his father finally said, turning around in his seat. His voice was different than it had been during their argument, softer, almost uncertain. "What you did tonight, I don't even have words for it." "I was just in the right place at the right time," Tyler said quietly. "No." His father shook his head firmly. "You could have been in the right place and done nothing. You could have called the police and walked away. You could have hidden in those bushes and waited for help instead of running with that little girl in your arms. But you didn't. You put yourself in danger to save someone you didn't even know." Tyler's mother wiped at her eyes. She'd been crying on and off during the whole drive home. "When we got your text, when we saw those words, child in danger, possible abduction, I thought my heart was going to stop." "I'm sorry I scared you," Tyler said. "Don't you dare apologize for that," she said fiercely, turning to look at him. "You did exactly what you needed to do. I'm just so grateful you're safe." They went inside and Tyler's father immediately went to the kitchen. Tyler could hear him opening cabinets, running water. A few minutes later he came back with 3 mugs of hot chocolate, something he used to make when Tyler was little and couldn't sleep. They sat together in the living room, the same room where they'd argued just hours before. Tyler held the warm mug in his hands, letting the heat seep into his fingers. He hadn't realized how cold he'd gotten during all that running. "I need to tell you something," his father said, setting his mug down on the coffee table. "The fight we had earlier, the things I said, I was wrong." Tyler looked up in surprise. His father never admitted to being wrong. It was one of the things that drove Tyler crazy about him. "Not wrong about the importance of keeping commitments," his father clarified, "but wrong about how I talked to you. Wrong about treating you like a child who couldn't make his own decisions. You proved tonight that you're not a child anymore. You're a young man who can think clearly under pressure, who can make life or death decisions, who can be trusted to do the right thing even when it's terrifying." Tyler felt a lump forming in his throat. "I spent so much time lecturing you about responsibility," his father continued, "that I didn't see that you already understood it better than I gave you credit for. You didn't save that little girl because I forced you to go to the community center. You saved her because of who you are. Because somewhere along the way, your mother and I managed to raise a good person even if I've been too hard on you to see it." "Dad," Tyler started, but his father held up a hand. "Let me finish. I know I'm too strict sometimes. I know I expect a lot from you. It's because," he paused, struggling with the words, "it's because the world is dangerous. Tonight proved that, and I want you to be ready for it. I want you to be strong and responsible and capable, but I went about it the wrong way. I made you feel like you couldn't breathe, like you had no freedom, and I'm sorry for that." Tyler had never heard his father talk like this. His dad wasn't the type to share feelings or admit mistakes. But there he was, eyes glistening with unshed tears, laying his heart bare. "I'm sorry too," Tyler said, "for the things I said, for slamming the door, For acting like you were the worst father in the world just because you wanted me to keep my word." His mother set down her mug and pulled both of them into an awkward three-person hug. They sat like that for a while. Nobody saying anything, just being together. When they finally separated, Tyler's father cleared his throat. "The police said there will probably be a trial. That you'll have to testify. I know. We'll be with you every step of the way. Whatever you need," Tyler nodded. He was trying not to think too much about that yet. About having to stand in a courtroom and recount the scariest night of his life. About having to face those men who'd tried to take Lily. His phone buzzed. It had been buzzing constantly since they left the community center, but Tyler had been ignoring it. Now he pulled it out and looked at the screen. Texts from friends, messages from people he barely knew from school, even a friend request on social media from a reporter. "It's going to be like this for a while," his mother said gently. "Everyone's going to want to talk to you, interview you, hear the story." "I don't want to be famous," Tyler said. "I just want things to go back to normal." "I know, honey, but normal might look a little different for a while." Tyler scrolled through the messages. Most were supportive. Friends saying they were proud of him, that they couldn't believe what had happened, that he was a hero. But there were a few that made him uncomfortable. People treating him like he was some kind of celebrity, like he'd done it for attention. He put the phone away. He'd deal with all that tomorrow. "You should try to get some sleep," his mother said. "It's been a long night." Tyler was exhausted, but he wasn't sure he could sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Lily's scared face, heard the van's engine, felt the weight of her small body in his arms as he ran. He went upstairs to his room and changed into comfortable clothes. His phone was still buzzing, so he turned it off completely. He just needed silence. Just needed to be alone with his thoughts for a while. Tyler lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Moonlight filtered through his window, casting shadows across the walls. This was the same room he'd been in just hours ago, angry and resentful about having to volunteer at the community center. The same room where he'd complained to his friends about his strict father and his lack of freedom. How quickly everything had changed. There was a soft knock on his door. "Tyler, you still awake?" "Yeah, Dad, come in." His father opened the door and sat on the edge of Tyler's bed just like he used to do when Tyler was little and had nightmares. "Can't sleep?" his father asked. "Too much in my head." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then his father said, "You know what keeps running through my mind? If you'd won our argument tonight, if I'd let you skip your volunteer work and go hang out with your friends. That little girl would probably be dead right now." Tyler felt a chill run down his spine. He'd thought the same thing, but hearing his father say it out loud made it more real. "I've been thinking about that too," Tyler admitted. "About all the little things that had to happen exactly right for me to be on that street at that exact moment. If we hadn't fought, if I hadn't left angry, if I'd taken a different route, if I'd walked faster or slower,